Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining if you're new. It's another weekly update on all my vermicomposting systems, and as per usual, I am starting with my regular totes. I would like to say that my regular tote bins are not double bins. They don't have any drains at the bottom, and I don't keep the lids on because for my area, I find that the lids collect too much moisture. Despite it being summer, my regular tote bins are running fabulously. It could be that I'm not adding too much material at one time. I did add some material this week because the castings were pretty broken down. The cardboard was well incorporated, so I did add some more. But normally I add a lot of cardboard weekly at the beginning, and these have been running for about 6 weeks now, I think, and I really have pulled back on how much cardboard. I'll have to go back and look at my videos and see what I did, but I'm very happy with the way my castings look in both of my regular tote bins. This week I really didn't have to do much to either of them. Even though on the second one I am running it as a trash can style where I'm not mixing it up or fluffing it a lot. I'm just feeding in various pockets of the bin and making sure that the pockets are fully incorporated before adding too many different pockets. But despite that, both the bins are doing pretty well. The one that's the trash can style is a little bit wetter than the sister bin to it, but again, I'm really impressed with how they look. They're not muddy, they're not silty. I'm not having problems with moisture collecting, so I'm very happy with that. If you're wondering what the white substance is that I sprinkle, my grit combination is diatomaceous earth, eggshells, and neem cake for a little bit of pest control, although only one of my bins has any real pests. So I did give these a feeding of some squash and set them up for the next week. Moving over to my Vermi bag totes. Now, the Vermi bag totes are staying true to how they typically are. They're nice and wet at the bottom, but then they're pretty dry and crunchy around the edges. So I did add some cardboard to this one as well, even though it wasn't as broken up as the regular totes, but I wanted to add some material to it. And then given that I added dry cardboard, I probably should have added moistened cardboard, but since I did add the dry cardboard, I did spray it down really well. The worm colony in this tote seems to be pretty well established. They're running through the food that I put in each week. I'm not finding many leftovers unless it's banana peels that do tend to break down. But otherwise, this bin as well is going to get some squash and get set up for the next week. I don't think I'll be updating the breeder bin each and every week, but I did just want to show that I'm still getting the dry edges, so I do wet this down to make sure those corners stay moistened. I don't want anything to dry out and jeopardize the breeder bin experiment, but there's not much to see with this week to week, so I probably won't update it next week. That brings me to the second regular tote, and last week I harvested worms out of this one, so I left the bait tray in there just to make sure the tiny worms that are in this bin, because this is a much younger colony as it was reestablished from my breeder bin experiment previously. Now this bin was pretty clumpy. It was more stuck together in the castings than any of my other bins, so I did fluff it up really well. I do speed up my video so it looks like I'm not being gentle with my worms, but I do a light touch with my worms. So when I broke it up, I took care not to try to disturb the worms too much or too harshly. And then I did give this a good size feeding because there weren't any other food particles left, and set it up for the following week. Last but not least is my only flow through system that I have, and I do want to say if you're considering doing a flow through system, you really have to think about how you're going to harvest your castings, because the only thing that I really dislike about this bin is the harvesting period. I do tend to have really super dry castings that I can't use in my like seedlings. I have to put it directly outside when I harvest. I'm not able to bring it back, even if I spray it down a couple times a week during the dry, after the harvest. It's just too dry. But I'm adding some water to this bin now, and flow through systems are great for the amount of moisture they can hold on to without drying out in the middle. The middle part stays really well. The edges do tend to dry. I did give this a big feeding since I didn't give it a big one last week, and just added the leftover shredded material to this bin. And that is the update on all of my systems this week. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end of the video. I do appreciate you watching the content. Until next week.